We used to live in a three-bedroom house, and during this time, I believe, was 2001 to 2004 that we used to live in that house. And during those times, my parents' marriage was rocky. Like they were having problems. There was domestic issues going on, and back then it was only me and my sister, and we were what, like 6, 7 years old. So putting all that negative energy together, plus what was already going on with the house itself, it just created a lot of, I'm going to say, evil energy, and it particularly stuck with me. I don't remember exactly how or when, but I remember started seeing this little kid. He was about, I want to say, he looked like about 7 years old. He had 1900s clothing, short hair. He was pale looking. Is how I can describe him. We became friends, I would say. We started having these small conversations. Hi, he would say hi back, and it started off small things. My mom used to mention that she would see me talking to the wall, but there was nothing there that I was talking to. So she would just ignore it and say it was like, oh, I'm just being, silly, talking to the wall, whatever. But no, it was a kid that I was talking to. And this happened in the span of 4 years. It went on for 4 years. Like I mentioned, my parents were going through a rocky marriage, and so they wouldn't really pay attention to us because they were having their own problems. And I remember my friend, he didn't have a name, he never told me his name, so I just called him Jose because that was my dad's name, and so I just called him Jose, and he would tell me things, small things like, hey, how's the remote? Silly, playful things. So I would do it, and my mom would like yell at me for hiding the remote or whatever. I remember that over the course of 4 months, he started telling me to do more serious things like, oh, take the money from the wallet, or I'll hide the car keys and hit your sister. And I told my mom that I had an imaginary friend and he was telling me to do things, but she really didn't pay attention to me. She just, blew it off and, oh, just do something to make you be busy so you don't have time to pretend talking to your friend or whatever. So she really didn't believe me, even though I told her so many times. And it came to one point where I wasn't sleeping at night because he just kept whispering things in my ear. I don't remember exactly what he was whispering, but he would whisper things in my ear like every single night. I would wake up crying, screaming because I just kept hearing him talking on my ear. And like I said, this went on for 4 years. It came to the point where I would go to school and I would be tired, and my teachers would ask me, hey, what's going on? And I explained to them like, oh, I have an imaginary friend and he doesn't leave me alone. And the teachers didn't believe me. They knew my parents were having problems at home, and DHS became involved, and I had to go to therapy and for those 4 years. And even though I was in therapy, I would still see my imaginary friend. The biggest thing that happened with my imaginary friend was that on my parents' 7th year anniversary, that same night, we were sleeping and I was just watching TV. And then my friend, hey, no, grab a knife and go kill your parents. I'm like, okay. And So I went to the kitchen and I grabbed a knife, and I remember that I had to grab a chair because I couldn't reach the drawer where the knives were at. So I grabbed a chair and grabbed the knife, and I went into my parents. I just stood over them with the knife in my hand. My mom wakes up, and she wakes up and stands up real quick. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know. My friend just told me to do this." And she like started freaking out. She grabbed the knife from my hand, and she woke up my dad. And I kept telling him, "No, my friend told me to do this. My friend keeps telling me all these things, this and this." And I think why that was because, like I mentioned in the beginning, all that negative energy and the things that were going on with that house, that I think that really compressed itself, and that spirit was feeding off of me, was feeding off my emotions, and was using that to his advantage to make me go to a point where he told me to kill my parents so it could all end, all that negative, bickering that they were having and stuff. After that night, I think I only saw him like 2 or 3 more times, and then he just disappeared, like just completely disappeared. And I never saw him again until the day we moved out of the house. So the house was completely empty. There was no furniture whatsoever, empty. And the only light that was on was the light of the hallway. So the house was set up to where as soon as you walk in, there's a long hallway, and then the bedrooms were on the right side, and then to the left was the entrance to the living room. And it was a really long hallway. So that was the only light in the hallway that was on. And as we were about to leave the house for the last time, my mom reaches over to turn the lights off for the hallway, and that's when she saw like small little kid just running across from one of the bedrooms to the kitchen, and she freaked out. She's like, she called out to my dad, "Look, did you see that? I just saw a kid." I'm like, "Mom, that's my friend that that I was always talking to, and you never would believe me." She was just like shocked and hysterical, and she's like, "No, let's just get out of here. Let's just get out of here." She shuts the door and just locks it, and we never went back. My mom, even to this day, she's, "Do you remember your imaginary friend? How you would just sit there and talk to the wall?" And she just tells me all these times I would just talk to the wall. And I told her, "Do you remember when you saw the kid?" She's like, "Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was him." I don't think it was a kid. I don't think it was a child. I think it was something, I wouldn't say evil, that had evil intentions, because like I said, he told me to kill my parents. So I don't think it was a child. I think it was some kind of spirit that was pretending to be a child. But to better understand the story, you would have to know about all the other occurrences that happened in the house. Things would fly off the shelves. The light bulbs from the ceilings and the lamps, they would just burst out of nowhere. So it was just like so many things that just came together that led to that, to me seeing my friend. Because, like I said, there was just a lot of energy, like a bad juju in that house. And they say that spirits tend to feed off of other people's emotions. So I think that's what was going on with me. Like I said, my parents were having a rough time with their marriage. So me as a kid, I would see them fighting and be sad, be wanting to have friends, and I think that's why it attached itself to me and started feeding off of me. Because my sister never saw anything. She never had an imaginary friend or anything like that. It was just me. I don't know if I actually believe like it, with people that are mediums or can sense things, but I'm very sensitive to things when it comes to paranormal stuff. Things have been happening to us for generations. Like our great grandparents tell us stories about stuff that's happened to them and their parents, and it's like a generational thing. It's like our family tends to attract that kinds of things. I don't know why, but we just do. There's a story in our family, on my dad's side, that one of my great grandparents made like a pact with the devil so he could enhance his powers, and they made some kind of deal. They don't say what kind, but they just said that he made a deal with the devil. My mom had a huge mirror hanging on the hallway. It was like a really tall, huge mirror, and it was like one of those decorated ones with like decorated borders. So this happened on my birthday, so we were having a birthday party for me, and everybody had left, and my mom was cleaning, and we were in the living room, watching TV, and I was opening my presents and whatnot. And I remember my mom told my sister to grab something from her bedroom. So she goes, and everybody's, looking at her go to the hallway. And then all of a sudden, that mirror that was hanging falls on top of her, like just flies off the wall and breaks on her head. Like just the mirror just shatters on her head. And there was no way that mirror could have come off the wall because it was on with like a screw. So it was really hard to take off. But it just comes off. It just comes on, like it just falls and just breaks on her head and just shatters everywhere. And she had a big cut on her head, and we had to take her to the hospital for that because they had to put stitches in her head for that. Everybody saw that, so it wasn't just me. And after we left the hospital to go back home, we went to the hallway and we tried to look for any logical explanation of how or why the mirror could have come off the wall, and no, the screw was still there. It was just like the mirror had been lifted and like just taken off. Normally they would just fall down, like just straight down, but no, it was like it was hanging and then it just fell on her head. If somebody had picked it up and intentionally broke it on her head. That was one of the memories that I remember the most from that house. And like I said, it was just a lot of things. She woke up one night and there was this, like, it wasn't a teddy bear, but it was like the material of a teddy bear, how they're furry looking and they have that soft fur. It was like a one of those Build-A-Bear bears, but it wasn't a bear. It was some kind of other little creature. She woke up to that thing choking her. And my dad swears he saw that thing like choking her because he had to pull it off of her. And they couldn't explain it. Like, it was literally choking her. It didn't leave any marks, but the arms of the bear was around my mom's like neck. Like I mentioned, before we even moved to the house, things were already going on in that house. So adding all that stuff in the house, plus my parents' marriage, it just creates bad energy. And that intensifies things in the house. So I think their problems added to the stuff that was already going on in the house. At that time, I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand the things that were going on. It's not until now that I'm an adult, like, I look back at my parents have experienced, and it freaks me out. Now as an adult, it like really freaks me out. And actually, my mom's friend lives in that house. and she's had to call us multiple times to see if we can come stay the night over because she keeps hearing footsteps in the house. And we have proof. We have documentation of things that went on with the house. Like, for example, the therapist where I had to go to therapy because of DHS. Like, we have those medical records. We have just like pictures of stuff that my parents were able to catch on camera. So we have records of the stuff that went into the house. And when we show people, they still don't believe us. We know what we went through in that house. The neighbor on the left to us, he set his wife on fire. He set his wife on fire because they were in an argument, so he set her on fire. The neighbors directly in front of us across the street, they were playing Russian roulette with a gun, and a guy shot his brains out in the house. And then the people on the other house next to us, the wife shot her husband and then shot dog dad. So it was like the energy of the house was like spreading out to the whole neighborhood. The man setting his wife on fire, I know that one because the wife was my elementary school teacher, and they had 2 kids. And then a couple years after that, the neighbor, the kid was my friend, and he hung himself on his 13th birthday. So that's why I'm saying, like, the energy of that house is like just spreading to all these other houses, and like, I just don't know what it is with that house. I just don't know. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know, but I just find it interesting that these things happen. It's just like a suburban area. It's like we live in the city. There's people all around, and in that block there was a total of 20 houses, and it was just like any other neighborhood, you know. Nothing bad ever happened, like, at all. The house where the guys were playing Russian roulette, like, right next to them was a church. So it was just like an ordinary neighborhood. It was a suburban neighborhood, like no crime, no nothing. And these things just happen out of nowhere, and there's just no explanation to them. If you look at the house, like, even the house itself looks creepy. The house just gives you a bad vibe just by looking at it. Yeah. I think after this, I'm gonna have to cleanse the room that I'm in because it does follow you. Even in the house that we live in now, like when we first moved in, we were hearing things in the attic and like people walking and stuff. And then we cleansed the house and it went away. So it's always good to cleanse a place before you move in and after you move out, just because you don't want anything that's following you to stay in that house. I think that's what I'm going to do to my room tonight.